So let's talk market. We're here with Kraig Klaus. Kraig, the expert in everything Arizona real estate. So one of the big things that people have been talking about is home prices. They've climbed a little bit.
Yep.
Where are we at? Is it going to continue at this rate, or?
First of all, thanks for having me, Scott. It's good to be here, and always love to talk real estate. Not hard to get me to talk about real estate, and good news is everybody wants to talk about it right now. So, yeah, I think the question I get asked a lot right now is what's next? I mean, we've seen this for a year and a half or so now, and what is the future going to hold in terms of the market? And that, I get people where I go to list their house and, I ask them what's their plan, and they're going to sell and they're going to rent for a year or two and wait till the prices come down and then try to buy. And I try to give as much data and information to help them understand why we don't feel that is in their best interest, that, it will cost more to buy a home next year, the year after, and going forward than it does today when you factor in mortgage rates and overall affordability.
Well, and that's a big piece of it too, is even if prices stay the same, mortgage rates go up. Even if prices fall and mortgage rates goes up, it's, we can afford less home for
Correct.
The same amount of money.
I mean, 3% versus 4% in an interest rate could be $75,000 to $125,000 depending on the price point. And so, that can make a big difference. So, the one thing I see is that the home price expectation survey is a survey of over 100 economists, investment strategists, and housing market analysts. They are calling for an average of 5.12% appreciation in 2022. The average over the next 5 years on the same survey was 4.6%. Average over the last 25 years is 4.1. So going over the next 5 years, most analysts are predicting we're going to do above average appreciation. And so, again, when we factor...
But still much less than 2021.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and just as an example, year over year, locally in Arizona, we're at 29.3%, which is number one in the nation.
Yeah.
So, we can't continue that. A lot of it has to do with, rents go up, and that's a big part of it as well. That is causing more people to want to buy now. Just example, rent prices in 2019 were about $1 a square foot. They're about $1.36 right now. They've gone up in some areas about 11% since the start of the year. And so that's a big factor in demand in that as well.
Yeah, and just about every graph I've seen, it's just, we see such a huge appreciation in home prices, but that's just dwarfed by the appreciation in rent.
Correct. Yeah, and they, as an example, number-wise, if you bought a $350,000 home this year in 2026, it would be worth $443,000. So, if you rented for that same amount of time, you threw that money away and your rent went up every year. And so that's a big factor.
Yeah, we did something that was, I think it was about 2 years ago, where we looked at just Augusta Ranch and people that bought 15 years prior and looking at that mortgage payment, which was about $750, $800. And then we looked at, and so if they were staying in the house, hadn't refinanced or anything like that, they're still paying $700, $800. And then we looked at the rents, and they had climbed from $800 to $1,695, so $1,700. That's way higher now, though, because that was a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, I mean the apartment complexes are $2,200, $2,300 a month for a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom in some cases. I mean, the rental market is definitely taken off, and part of that goes back to, and again, talking about forecasting appreciation, builders since '08 have underbuilt and across the country. And that's why there's a housing shortage across the country right now. Most experts are predicting by 2022 we'll be 4.35 million units short of what we need as a country for housing.
Well, and because they took basically 10 years off.
Correct.
And underbuilt. And then now we're continuing to do that.
Yep. Well, and I think going along with the rent conversation, COVID changed a lot, where most experts predicted millennials wouldn't be buying until their early to mid 30s. Mm-hmm. And COVID changed that. Being evicted, landlord not paying rent, raising rents, those type of things has just caused a feeling of they want more security. And the fact that with all the programs out there, the ability to get into home ownership with as little as 3.5% down, in some cases 0% if you're a VA, and locking in that payment for 30 years that it can't change. And that in and of itself is creating a lot more demand in the market.
And more demand here because of affordability and, especially with those millennials that now don't have to go into work and can work remotely and now they can get paid based on living in California or New York, but can live in Arizona.
Right.
And the cost of living is much lower here on all aspects.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, average of 300 people a day moving here. And it's funny, I was telling somebody the other day, in the year and a half since COVID or so, I've sold more homes for people moving back home or out of state than I have in the 17 plus years before. And in COVID changed a lot of that. So there's a lot of reasons that demand has gone up, and, those factors all factor in. Looking forward in what's going to cause appreciation to slow and what caused appreciation to go at the rate it's at now, it's all about inventory, supply and demand. In any market, that's why everything costs more right now, right? Supply chains and things that are down in that. So right now we have about 7,500 active listings in the Valley. In March, we were about 4,000. Now, 15,000 or so is considered a balanced market. And so if we've gained about 3,500 in 6 months, we've got a little ways to go before we're going to get even to more of a balanced, which I would consider, say, 2019 a time frame, very similar in that regard. And that was still a seller's market. We're at 0.8 months supply. We're under a month supply. And even in a balanced market's 3 to 4 months supply.
Yeah, and that's a huge increase because we were, 0.3 for quite a while.
Right.
But even though it's a huge increase, we've been in a seller's market for quite a while.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the listings under contract has gone up the last 2 months. And part of that is because there's more choices. Inventory has gone up, so more homes can sell. You see national headlines that home sales are down year over year. Well, that's simply because there's not enough homes to sell.
Yeah.
If there were more homes, they would have sold. So it's not a doom and gloom number. And I tell you, that is kind of the new thing right now, is for anybody to come out and write an article or, say, oh, market's going to bust and the, houses are going to crash and the market, all that, because there's no harm if you're wrong, right? Nobody's upset if you're wrong. And you can say that and create fear and create doubt and create all those things when you have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, I commented on an article a guy wrote on LinkedIn and just talking about how it's going to burst and it's going to, all this stuff. And he's like a financial guy who's like in his mid-20s. He's never owned a home, and he's telling everybody these things. And so, I just told him, here's some facts and information and, that. But it's why it's important. We always ask people to call us and have a conversation.
Yeah, I saw a definition of an economist, and it's somebody who can tell you tomorrow why what they told you today didn't happen.
Correct. And that's it. There's no harm in if they're wrong. They're looking strictly at numbers and emotion and trying to create that kind of fear that causes people to click on their article and read it. So, again, for us, it's just strictly information and being honest with people. We're looking right now, myself and my wife are looking. I'm always looking to pick up rental properties. I believe in the real estate market. I believe in it going forward. I think Arizona has been undervalued as a market for a long, long time. And, we're starting to see that change. And, but again, the forecast, we're not expecting, nobody is, because we didn't get where we're at today the way we got where we're at before.
Is it easier for buyers than it was a few months ago?
Yeah, there's more choices. And we're going to start seeing that. And I tell a lot of sellers now, it's going to be a lot more midweek, second weekend type offers and type things, which I know sounds crazy, right? Like, oh my gosh, we have to wait 10 days for an offer. I remember listing in 08 when we were waiting 11 months for an offer. So it's one of those things where it's just expectations and setting that. And it doesn't mean the market's going backwards. You're going to see price corrections because people are going to still price as if the market's appreciating at 5% a month when it's really 5% a year. But it doesn't mean the market's going backwards. And just simply supply, demand, and low mortgage rates tell you that it's not going to change anytime soon. It's got a ways to go, a little ways before we even reach balance.
Okay. Equity.
Yeah. Equity is the game changer. Equity is the reason that, we're able to do what we're able to do right now. And what a big reason why nobody's expecting it to go backwards. Right now, there's about $9 trillion in accessible equity from homeowners, which is about $153,000 per homeowner. So we've got a lot going there for people to be able to ride out some storms, do some things, take advantage of that opportunity. So equity is the big game changer, and then lack of supply. Even in 05, we were still in the 20 to 30,000 range during the peak, and then 60 to 70,000 in 08. So again, we've got a ways to go. We're still severely under shortage of housing in the entire country, and especially locally. Just look at all the apartment complexes and storage facilities going up.
Yeah. We are seeing some new things being built out here. East Valley is growing quite a bit.
Yeah, I tell you, it is so much fun. Saturday I had a listing appointment with some clients. I had sold their house to them in 2008, and it's off of Ellsworth and Empire. And just talking with them about the drive out there now versus in 08. Yeah. Riggs and Ellsworth now, that Fry's Marketplace going in. Just all of the stuff out there. It's totally different.
No, Ellsworth, it used to be a 2-lane road that would flood all the time, Lake Ellsworth. And you'd have to drive through either down Ironwood or through the airport at 25 miles an hour. And Ironwood back then was 2-lane and head-on accidents all the time. Yeah, it's very amazing. Different, and that freeway's starting to move.
And that's the thing. The valley has expanded so much that it's grown so much that there's opportunities out there. And the East Valley, with the airport out here, with everything going on around here, the Legacy coming in, sports complex, all that stuff, the tech corridor, this is an area people want to be. We get a lot of out-of-state buyers that, will tour the West Valley, tour North Phoenix, and a lot of them choose to be out here because of freeway access and things like that. And again, it's going to continue to cause people to want to be out here and demand to be high.
Yeah, yeah. So if you had one message for people thinking about buying, what would it be?
For people thinking about buying, I would say the sooner the better. It's going to cost you more next year or the year after that than it does today. The mortgage rates will probably not be this low again, maybe ever. At 3% over 30 years, it's almost free money. And, it's one of those where waiting will cost you. I say the same thing to sellers that are considering that or considering the rent option, trying to cash out and wait till it comes down. I wouldn't do it personally. I wouldn't tell any of my friends or family members to do that. I don't believe that's in their best interest based on all the data we have. Ultimately, I tell people, call us first. I've at 5 or 6 appointments this year where they've ended up keeping it. They've talked to them and ended up keeping it and renting it to help create wealth. And, we get nothing for me out of that, but the opportunity to help them build wealth. And so again, call us first. But again, I just ultimately tell you, there's no indication market's going backwards anytime in the next 5 years or so. And homeownership is still ultimately the best decision in terms of locking in that payment, building equity. The sooner you get into homeownership now, the more equity you're going to build and take advantage of. Even 5.3% next year is better than 4.2%.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big thing. There is no indication we're in a bubble. There's no indication the bubble's going to burst. Appreciation's going to continue for the next 5 years at least, based on all the data, all the surveys, all the economists, and just based on lack of supply, underbuilding, and increased demand from millennials and people not wanting to rent anymore.
All right. Well, thanks, Kraig. Look forward to chatting with you again next month.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good rest of September, guys.
Thanks for spending time with us this week at State 48 Homeowner, the ins and outs of owning an Arizona home. You can connect with us for more information, submit topics